Pollster Frank Luntz recently did a focus group, and in his focus group after the last debate, Bernie Sanders overwhelmingly won the debate. And here he went on CNN to discuss his findings, or I'm sorry, not CNN, CNBC to discuss his findings. And the host, Aaron Ross Sorkin, he couldn't quite believe that Bernie, won the debate. He couldn't quite believe that Bernie, had a chance at all, even in the election. So watch him struggle with that.
Okay, let's go to the final clip here. We got Bernie Sanders addressing the Trump economy several times on the debate stage last night.
Trump goes around saying the economy is doing great. You know what? Real inflation accounted for wages went up last year 1.1%. That ain't great. Today in America, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. More income and wealth inequality since the 1920s. We need an economy that works for working families.
So there's nothing new there.
Nothing new, but you think he's the winner of the night?
I don't think he's the winner of the night. The LA Times Group, they said he was the winner of the night, and for two reasons. Number one, he had passion. And number two, for the first time, they're starting to see him as having the capability of challenging Donald Trump on the debate stage. And I want to remind you, these are Democratic primary voters, not the center of the country, and obviously none of them voted for Donald Trump. But they now see Bernie Sanders as being able to take the argument directly to Donald Trump, and that's why he's been rising in the California polls, and that's why he won last night.
Frank, but let me ask you, so you're obviously polling people in Los Angeles, in California. We know what that state looks like. It seems to me, I don't even think it seems to me, I think it seems to everybody, that this election is to get won or lost in a handful of swing states in the middle of the country by a handful of independents that have yet to make up their mind. And to the extent that you can predict or, through implication, the folks that you were speaking with, what's the real takeaway after last night?
The real takeaway is not who wins in November. It's who gets the Democratic nomination. And I would have said to you, say 30 days ago, that I don't think Bernie Sanders is viable in the 2020 campaign. After listening to these voters in California with more delegates than any other state in the country, I think Bernie Sanders has a good opportunity, good chance to win the primary. And if you win California, you get such a huge share of the delegates now that Kamala Harris is out.
So how do you rank things right now?
Oh, I can't. And I said this to you a week ago.
Yes, you can. You can rank it. You can rank it. Go right ahead. I can rank it. I honestly believe there's about an equal chance at the moment of Bernie and Biden being the nominee. I think that it's overwhelmingly likely, just hanging on by the skin of their teeth, is Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete being viable, but their chances are quickly fading into oblivion. But I think it's a coin flip right now between Bernie and Biden. Now, I got to give Biden credit because, he's hanging on. I thought he would have already been out of the lead by now. I did early on. I was telling you guys, there's no way the more he starts talking, the more people are going to dislike him and the more, Bernie will grow a lead. But it's, hey, man, the numbers are clear and he is hanging on. I think a lot of that support really is default support, as I call it, which is just who's running? Oh, Biden's running? Well, he was the VP under Obama. Sure, Biden. I would support Biden. Why not? I'd vote for him. I think that's a lot of what his support is. And the numbers show that too, by the way, because Bernie has the highest percentage of people who are set on voting for Bernie. I think the number's over 70%, which is out of this world, whereas everybody else is below 50% for that category. So, but I do think, you have to accept the reality for what it is, and Biden has about a 5-point lead in the average, or maybe a little bit more than a 5-point lead in the average of polls. But I do think that Bernie and Biden have about an equal shot right now of being the nominee, and Mayor Pete and Elizabeth Warren are barely holding on by the skin of their teeth. But you could see they don't want to say that either Bernie's the favorite or Bernie and Biden are tied for the favorite. They don't want to say it. They don't want to say it. I don't know. I don't know what it's like. I cannot tell you the state of the race. I don't know. And you notice there were multiple times there where Aaron Ross Sorkin, like, literally threw the softball down the center of the plate and was like, okay, now I'm going to prep you. Go ahead and give us our corporate spin. He said, I mean, well, really, what's the real takeaway here? What's the real takeaway about this race? That's him saying, like, okay, sure, you said your little spiel about Bernie Sanders, but who do you really think is a serious candidate? Klobuchar? Can we go with Klobuchar? To be fair to him, he didn't say Klobuchar, but he's teeing it up for Frank Luntz to be like, well, at the end of the day, obviously, it's not going to be Bernie, and it is going to be one of the corporate candidates. That's what he's doing. He's teeing it up. So he was just waiting for it and put our spin on it. And then, so here's the message I have for Aaron Ross Sorkin when he says, well, swing states and independents, that's what this race really comes down to. Dude, those are the states that Bernie Sanders does the best around the country. Those are his, like, guaranteed layup states. And yes, I said it. Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders in the Rust Belt, Bernie Sanders is going to destroy him. Because Bernie Sanders is the actual economic populist that Donald Trump just pretended to be. And you think people in that area of the country don't know it? Of course they know it. Obama ran in a semi-populist way, and then Obama abandoned them. Trump ran in a populist way, and then Trump abandoned them. And, you know, you got Bernie Sanders with the track record to back it up, opposing all the trade deals, and being a strong supporter of unions his entire career. I mean, there was a story just the other day, and we're going to cover this later, but U.S. Steel Mill in Detroit is shutting the factory. 1,500 jobs, poof, gone, in an area that already is struggling and was obliterated by the trade deals originally when all the car manufacturers left there. So, and this is Trump, I'm a populist and I'm going to save the jobs and whatnot. Really? Well, 93,000 jobs were outsourced in your first year as president. That's just your first year. The Carrier factory that you made such a big stink, I'm saving these jobs. Those jobs eventually went overseas as well. So you think these people don't know it? Of course they know it. You think they're just going to, close their eyes and vote for Trump again? No, they feel abandoned by him. They feel betrayed by him. Bernie Sanders does fantastically well in those states. So his concern is actually couldn't be more wrong. If anything, the real concern for Bernie is how's he going to do in New York? How's he going to do in California? Now, in some polls, he's leading in California, which is wonderful. But guys, remember, last election, 2016, he got obliterated in California, and he got obliterated in New York. Now, some of that in New York was because of the terrible rules that shut out independents, and you had to switch to being a Democrat months before the election. So it was really voter suppression there as well. So don't get it twisted on that front. But, yeah, he got defeated in New York. He got defeated in California. And so for him to act like, well, we know it's California, so obviously it's going to be pro-Bernie. What are you talking about? He got destroyed there last time. So, because, by the way, there's a lot of areas that are liberal areas, which are relatively higher income areas in California, which explains why it went for Hillary over Bernie. Because, people who are already wealthy, they don't want as much of a political revolution, generally speaking, as people who are middle class or poor. So, but Bernie's obviously doing the work and really turning out the more middle class areas and poor areas. And the polls are reflecting that, he's doing really well in that state. But that wasn't a given. And this is what I hate. Anytime, like, a lefty does something good, it's always just spun as like, oh, well, obviously that was going to happen. There is no obviously in this thing. There is no obviously. So, like, it's taking hard work and rallies and getting people out there and spreading the message. And he just acts like, well, it's California, so obviously it goes to Bernie. Are you kidding me? What a joke that is. But Bernie is the strongest in the swing states, and he has a very high percentage of flipping Trump voters. There's only 3 candidates who really can flip Trump voters, which is Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, and Bernie Sanders. Everybody else struggles massively on that front. And so the criticism of him here is hilariously the thing that Bernie's actually strongest at. And then the other thing is, I like when he goes, you think he's the winner? And Frank Luntz is like, it doesn't matter what I think. It's what the group thought, and they thought he was the winner. And this is not like, remember the CNN focus group where they had all older people and all of them are like, Klobuchar was great. Frank Luntz at least had a more, wide array of voters, which is more representative of the demographics of America. So you got a little bit of more of a finger on the pulse when you go with the Frank Luntz group, the LA Times group versus the CNN group. But it's hilarious. He's just unwilling to accept it. You think he's the winner? And they were saying, well, he said nothing new there. Yeah, but we don't have Medicare for all yet. So you're going to have to keep talking about Medicare for all yet. We still have insane record levels of income inequality. So you have to keep talking about the insane record levels of income inequality. Like, this is a criticism that's been thrown at Bernie. And by the way, this is a criticism thrown at this show too. But listen, I'll be the first to say it. Guilty. Guilty as could be. Sometimes I'm massively repetitive. Guilty. You want to know why? Because we don't have Medicare for all, and we don't have free college, and we don't have a living wage, and we haven't ended the wars, and we haven't done a Green New Deal, and we haven't legalized marijuana and released every single nonviolent drug offender, and we haven't regulated Wall Street. Like, that's why we're repetitive, because the problems haven't changed. They haven't been addressed. In fact, they're getting worse. So yes, when Bernie goes out there and he does his little stump speech, he's doing his little stump speech, but it lands and it resonates because he means it. He's passionate, as Frank Luntz said. But also, people know he's going to do something about it. And he's going to fight for these positions which he thinks will fix the country. And by the way, I happen to agree with him. I think he's right that they would fix the country. But there you have it. You see them absolutely positively struggling. Aaron Ross Sorkin for sure, Frank Luntz to a lesser extent. But Aaron Ross Sorkin is just struggling to accept the fact that, hey, he could really win, man. He could really win. And you see that, you know, we've seen, it's like they go through different stages of grief in mainstream media when it comes to Bernie. And we're still in a stage, at least partially, where they just try to ignore Bernie and act like he doesn't exist. By the way, they definitely do that with Yang as well. It's crystal clear that they've tried to ignore him and act like he doesn't exist because he's not serious, according to them. But like, there's a concerted effort to like talk about them as little as possible. And they've gone with the strategy, which by the way is semi-genius, the strategy of, oh no, when we attack him, sometimes his numbers go up. His poll numbers go up and he gets more donations. So let's do the exact opposite and just be indifferent and just don't talk about him. And, you know, it's he who shall not be named. If you cover your ears and close your eyes and act like he doesn't exist, maybe that'll hurt him more than if we go after him. That definitely has been the strategy at a bunch of corporate media outlets. But he's still slowly climbing even with that indifference strategy. And so even though I think it's the best possible strategy they could use against him, now it looks like they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And they might, you know, start going after him aggressively again, which could in turn help him even more. It's almost like we're dealing with a movement here. And it's almost like there are other ways around corporate media. And that's, you know, you have new media, you have social media, which is really important, independent media. And you also just have good old-fashioned campaigning and working. Getting people involved, texting, calling, knocking on doors. Bernie going around doing rallies, talking to voters, hearing their concerns. And the good old-fashioned campaigning is beating these schmucks, that's for sure.